Hello, this is Michael Hexter, and welcome to Politics 2100 here on YouTube. So this episode is called Israeli and Hamas Military Political Policy Designed to Foment Apocalyptic Nihilism. So I have brought up in the past in relationship to discussions about fascism, American neo-fascism, Trumpism, the concept of apocalyptic nihilism, and I believe it to be a fairly good description of a set of psychological states that well describe what people in either military settings, in other words, when people are about to go fight and potentially lose their lives for a cause, or a cult of some kind attempts to create a sense of do or die action that needs to be taken, and to cut out the higher functions of people's brains and just speak to them in a way that where their fight or flight, lower, more irrational or more gut level, you could say, aspects of their body mind are being activated, and that can happen, or that the use of weapons, or the use of threat of weapons, within in a military occupation, in the case of Israel's occupation of Palestine, the West Bank and Gaza, and all of those things can activate this kind of apocalyptic nihilism. And also in fundamentalist religions, so including all of the monotheistic religions, so Judaism, Christianity, and Islam can have apocalyptic nihilist ideas in them. For instance, what some people call millenarianism, the idea of that the millennium is about to come, or the rapture, or there's any number of different sort of religio-psychological states that are being triggered by this idea of this great conflagration that's going to happen, and either you just sit back and watch it happen, or you try to foment it, or you try to get other people to believe in it, and you use that as your political tool of mobilizing people to enhance your own power, your own wealth, so forth and so on. Number of different ways that's used. So in any case, it cuts out, or it reduces the influence of the higher functions of the mind, or the more thoughtful or rational, you could say, parts of people's minds, the more deliberative parts, the delaying of impulsive action to try to understand what's going on. And so anyway, so apocalyptic nihilism is, without that concept, I think it's hard to understand, for instance, the death cult around fascism, okay? Like Viva la Muerte, which was the call of the Spanish fascists. You can't understand long live death. And now that comes in part from the military origins of that particular form of fascism, but again, also the Nazis, the core of the Nazi party in the 1920s and so on, was also drawn from demobilized World War I, members of the Reichswehr, the so forth and so on, that were dissatisfied, disgruntled and so forth and so on, and they thought that their military careers were undermined by quote unquote Democrats or whatever, and also by inference, they thought there was a stab in the back, so forth and so on. So anyway, so this origin in the military is of apocalyptic nihilism, or at least the affinity for that is there, but it also comes from many religious traditions, okay, that are not explicitly military. So anyway, the Israel and Hamas, or Israeli what I'm calling military political policy, so is informed or attempts to stir these feelings of apocalyptic feelings in the population to support more brutality against the Palestinians. Similarly, Hamas attempts to do the same thing among Palestinians, and they try to collapse the civil society in Palestine, where people can more deliberatively think about how they can achieve justice and prosperity and survival for Palestinians and political sovereignty, so forth, so on. So that all that's left is the kind of reactive and brutal military conflagrations that they are attempting to stir up. So, and they're actually, we now understand, or we now see, or one of the best explanations for the strategy behind the brutality and the barbarism of the Hamas attacks on Israel is, in fact, they wanted exactly this reaction from Israel. In other words, the overreaction, the emotionalistic reaction of, they understood Netanyahu and the Likud government very well and how they would respond, and they have pretty much manipulated them very well. And one of the things that they're trying to do, or at least the plausible theory, is that they're trying to make a wider war, have a conflagration in the Middle East, which would, or not only in the Middle East maybe, but in you could say Western Asia, or whatever, Iran, so on and so on, bringing in all these different parties into this war by Israel committing massive war crimes, genocide against the Palestinians. And this is, again, apocalyptic nihilism. So in apocalyptic nihilism, the soldier, in a way, is so set on victory that they don't care anymore about protecting civilians anymore. They just want to humiliate the enemy, and they want to defeat the enemy any way possible, even if their side is decimated, even if their civilians are decimated. And so similarly, Zionist Jews, ultra-Zionist Jews, are so set on hurting or killing or eradicating Palestinians, and have such and have a dehumanized view of Palestinians, which is, in turn, it's a mutually reinforcing system. In other words, as I've been talking about in just the recent few episodes, it's a cycle of Italian cycle, I called it, or a hatred and vengeance cycle. Basically, each side creates, and there are ways in which, by the way, I'll do another episode about this, where through the use of propaganda, that cycle is reinforced over and over again from both sides. But anyway, so this apocalyptic nihilism is also on the side of Israeli militarists as well. So, and they say they don't care. In other words, they are not thinking rationally about the safety of, as we see in a way, the safety of Jews in Israel. They screwed up big time. They're just thinking about fighting the others, and also in this case, in the case of Israel, they are expanding their settlements of ultra-nationalist religious fanatics in the West Bank, and as a way to undermine what passes for a government of the Palestinians, the Palestinian Authority. So their focus has been on the what they thought is actually the more threatening thing for them is the formation of a Palestinian civil society. And so they're but they're so focused on this. They live the leadership of, it seems like, both the IDF currently and also or IOF lives in this world of basically apocalyptic nihilism that doesn't look ahead to the future. How are we going to live together here in the Levant? How are we going to live together between the river and the sea? Okay, and there's also, beyond the leaderships of these groups, there are people who act. There are solidarity activists on both sides. In other words, Zionists or pro-Israel, Israeli militarist activists, and then also pro-Palestinian activists who attempt to also stir apocalyptic nihilism. Okay, and they act in a way that is resonant with it, rather than creating this space where through political and means, through negotiations, through criminal proceedings against war criminals on both sides. There are plenty of war criminals on the Israeli side, and there are plenty of war criminals, or let's say Hamas has added to the stack of war criminals on their own side in the last week or so. But anyway, through proceedings of a international tribunal. And again, international law is a great idea, but it's rarely imposed. It's rarely realized in full. But the idea is, the concept is at least designed for how to adjudicate this and negotiate and adjudicate this dispute, or this fighting that is going on. And so and there are people who say, well, it's only an instrument of imperialism. It can be that, okay, or it can only, but you need in order for people not to annihilate each other, there has to be some kind of international pressure, arena created in which this can be fought in without weapons, without starvation, intentional starvation, intentional or basically attacks, physical attacks, military means, and shooting and bombing and so forth and so on. So anyway, I think this idea of apocalyptic nihilism is helpful to understand this emotionalized policy, and also of the policy of the governments, or of the, let's say, the military instances. Hamas is not really a government, but the political leadership of the Gaza Strip, and then also of Israel, and as a policy target, the actual policy target of them. In other words, that there's nothing there seems to be nothing else, not in terms of the Israeli government is a little cleverer they both have their clever moments of trying to show themselves to be, more reasonable and more rational than they are. But in terms of the actual action on the ground, in terms of how they actually act, they seem to be trying to create an apocalyptic nihilism and a hopelessness, really, of us being able to really work together and resolve differences and prosecute crimes or civil disputes fairly. Anyway, so just want to put this out there. I'm going to do another video about specific aspects of this, but in any case, just wanted to stop right here. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Please like the video if you found it helpful. And please subscribe to Politics 2100. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.